when it comes to models like this, right? Nobody likes models like that. And they're not necessarily very helpful, because when you look at the data, what you will find out in studies is that models are very disruptive, right? This often leads to a few little things that you probably have noticed on your own as well. Very often people forget where they were, they forget the S left conditions. Sometimes they forget to return to the original task, and they definitely slow down as they try to complete these tasks. And most importantly, when interrupted, users need 3 to 27% more time to complete tasks. They commit twice the number of errors across tasks and have twice the increase in anxiety compared to tasks presented at the boundary between tasks. Like just whenever they wanted to finish something and move on to something else, this is very disruptive. And this is a study from 2006, but it's still very much relevant, I think, today, right? So again, to put it differently, disruption is very expensive. And because model windows require immediate attention, they usually interrupt the flow, people lose their train of thought, and they block the content that's loaded in the background. So what does it mean for us? Never to use models? No. We actually need models every now and again, but we need to be very clear what kind of models we have. We have models, we have non-models. We saw both of them at this point. Models are the ones that actually block background content. And we need non-models when we actually do not want to block the background content. There's also lightbox where background is dimmed, and there is a non-lightbox where background is not dimmed. So you basically can interact with the interface and scroll down and copy paste over here. That's not very common, I have to say. This is maybe a little bit more common, actually, right? But then again, when we're looking at the options, I would say non-models in general tend to perform better, especially in the context of tables. Because again, people usually have important tasks to do. So we need to respect that. What does it mean? Well, when we look at things like this in our tables, like sometimes you create a new customer, right? And you need to give a name and you need to provide a type. That might work because again, at this point, we're not assuming that somebody is going to copy paste, right? Although we never know. On the other hand, we can also have this kind of quick views, right? Here, maybe it would be reasonable to do it this way or have a side view, right? Both of them works, but it probably wouldn't be a good idea to show it inside of a table because it just requires a lot of space, right? And then whenever we look at something like this, maybe we have the actions, especially for things that are critical, like deleting a customer. We definitely want to disrupt the user, and we definitely want to make it very, very clear to them that this is a reversible action. So that's definitely a use case for dialogue, right? And then as we keep going, in here, when we want to import, sometimes you'll find sort of a kind of like almost like a model inside of a model. That sometimes becomes a bit difficult because again, models exist because we want to move people to a different mode, right? That's kind of okay here, but whenever you have multiple nested models, people might get actually lost in them. So we need to be very careful. So again, what does it mean for us? Well, I kind of wrote down these use cases, which I consider to be quite useful for me, right? So what we want to do, we want to use models when users value the disruption, right? Only if they will value the disruption. We want to have it for maybe repeatable tasks like adding new items. That might be okay. Or when we want to reveal more details, if we need a lot of vertical space. To display important warnings. If we need immediate input, like for example, there is a timeout. If you don't sign in now, you might lose your data. We might want to confirm that. The same goes for confirming a destructive action. Avoid reversible mistakes or errors and prevent critical transactions as well, right? This is where we might want to use them, but we might want to avoid them for everything else. The worst performer ever is a newsletter box pop-up. They're dismissed almost instinctively at this point. The same goes for onboarding models. Like when we're showing things like these are the new features and try this, and kind of what people are looking for when they encounter those kind of models are usually skip link, right? So instead, we need to be very careful. In fact, if anything, the best thing you can do here for onboarding is to show a non-modal in the right upper corner that people can collapse or minimize, or kind of something like remind me later button, which is often missing. So what happens is when onboarding tutorials, onboarding models, people see them, they dismiss them immediately. And if they need them, there is no way to bring them back, right? So if you give people an option to collapse or minimize one of those models, that might be actually a very, very good idea.